Hello, you're very welcome along to another episode of the Offload podcast. It's wonderful to have you here with us. Thank you, of course, to 15 Kings for the continued sponsorship as well. If you look for a Christmas present, last minute gifts, get yourself out there. Certainly what Donncha is wearing today is not.
You've done me dirty. You've done me dirty. I thought we were doing Christmas jumpers, fella. Last pod before Christmas.
You fucking rat. Shit. Well, that's a good. What's that? The polar bear. Love it.
Yeah, look at him there. Yeah, bit of a polar bear. If you can't see it, if you're listening, we're on YouTube as well. Don't worry, it's not that exciting. To be fair,
it's a good jumper. Listen, we've got a guest on today, a man who we've known and had a good relationship over many years on the pitch, and he's written a new book that is giving a real insight behind the scenes in Irish rugby at the minute. Of course, Brendan Fanning is going to join us very shortly. But the run up to Christmas, Donncha, tell us, what's it like in your house?
Yeah, it's bananas. To be fair, Jenny's all over everything for us. You're probably the same way with Lucy, just being on top of stuff. But do you know what? Today I kind of got caught up in the stress of it. I think you have to be very careful this time of the year, because you can actually choose to be a kind of, you remember we used to go on about kind of what was the line, radiators, people that are good to be around.
Oh yeah.
But then there's drainers, like that. That's what's going around at the moment, and choose to stay the side of a radiator, like because like everyone's just passing on stress around the place. It is, but like, you know what I mean, just kind of get through it. I got caught in it a little bit today. I was legging it around the place. I had a few jobs to do that I probably made out to be overly important. And in my head, I came up with a really good idea, right? I was thinking, if you're up for having a chat and stuff like that, a bit like a college disco, you wear the traffic lights, you know what I mean? Red, amber, or green. And I was thinking you could do it for Christmas. If you're in Christmas attire like me, I'm up for the chats. But if you're tugged out like you, they're like a fucking boring accountant on a Friday. Look at the cut of you.
Hey, get out of that. You said an accountant. This would be appropriate. You give out when accountants turn up in the tracksuit bottoms.
No, that's what that looks like. But if you're tugged out like you're too busy for small talk.
I'm an amber.
Busy. Yeah. Oh, you probably be amber. Yeah. We need actually pure black. If you're in all out black, just leave them go around. You know what I mean? Black jacket, black t-shirt, boom. They're too busy to chat. Yeah.
Do you ever go to those? Do you ever go to those nightclubs?
Yeah,
they had that.
Back in the day, it was great crack, wasn't it?
Back in the day, I remember I was going out with a girl at the time, and I thought I'd do the right thing with the beach club I was in, and I had the red traffic light on, and I remember like bouncing about and like don't talk to me. Got my red traffic light. All of a sudden, I bump into her. She was wearing an amber. What's going on here?
Brilliant.
That's not fair, is it?
I love it.
Did it finish there? Yeah, well, like, you have to be able to have fun, don't you? I was like, well, I don't.
How long did it last past that?
Oh, I think... Well, there was a few questions. There was always me checking the phone then after that one.
About 3 minutes. Oh, that's the best story I've ever heard, Tommy. I'm delighted with it. The misery that you got the bullet. Do you know one thing though? One thing I'd say, and look, I don't want to be kind of preachy or anything, but don't miss the windows. Like I missed the window today, right? I saw Tomás O'Leary, our teammate. And he was there, do you want to get a coffee?
Green. He's a green.
Tomás was all out green. And in my head, I was red. You know what I mean? But now that I look at it, what shitty job was important than getting the time at Layers, like?
I know, but it was probably a job that Jenny gave you. And you knew
sharpening knives.
Yes.
Getting the knives sharpened. That's it. I fucking burned Tomás O'Leary.
Do you not have a knife sharpener?
Yeah, but it's Christmas, so I want them.
Oh, come on, that was the job.
That's worse than you getting shafted by your missus.
The knives sharpened.
Lears, I'm sorry, man. I'm so sorry. If I did the window again, I definitely would.
Where do you even go to get that, though?
Oh, yeah. Oh, Cork, we've got it all, fella. There's no fear of that.
I'd say you're sharpening your knives down there, all right. Yeah, jeez.
Sorry, I know we've gone off and made this kind of bit personal, but the point I'm trying to make is don't miss the window. Like, don't miss
Yeah.
you're like,
Keep,
fucking imagine
keep
it
the
there.
amber up. The amber
Keep,
covers both ways.
everyone stay amber. Be like Tommy's missus, stay amber.
Okay, another thing we were discussing this week, because we do talk about rugby, but we were talking about this. My son's nativity was last
Ah,
week.
yeah, magic.
It is magic, but it's priceless. We had Derek on the telly on Ireland AM this week as well, down with some kid in Galway at their nativity, and they're all dressed up, and you have the octopus and whatever else. But they were going through there's the Mary Joseph narrator, innkeeper, wise man, angel, donkey, shepherd, sheep, and they were kind of given in the paper this week about what this says about them, and the teacher kind of picks. So if you're a Mary, you're confident, popular, and most likely to become the Taoiseach, right?
Oh, whoa, good on you, Mary.
If you're the donkey, I was the donkey.
I was also the donkey. I understand me being the donkey. In fact, I just stayed the donkey forever. You, my friend, how the fuck were you the donkey?
I was the donkey. Oh, I was always mad for making people laugh. So likely to be the class clown, keen to make others laugh and happy to laugh at themselves. I mean, there you have it. Everybody needs a donkey as well, don't they?
Before you go off the donkey there, my role in the nativity was to walk in with Peter de Faubert, who I still see around the place at the moment. He was Mary, and I had to go in. Like, shows how old school it was. Peter de Faubert was on my back, and I had to go in on my hands and knees, being the ossel. Like, and I remember my sister Emer, because we went to school in Spurnave, so they brought the boys' school and the girls' school together to watch the nativity, and they were like, "Which one's your brother?" She was like, "Oh, fuck, he's the ossel down there. Look at him."
We had a hilarious text in from some viewer this morning telling us their story about nativity, and their son was the donkey, and they said, "And what's your job?" And he goes, "My job's to ride Mary to Bethlehem." Which is true. So funny.
You can't beat it. You can't beat
Some
it.
of the texts were so funny. The innkeeper is a natural born leader who is used to commanding respect. Paul O'Connell is the innkeeper.
I'll be taking that.
No
room.
space here.
No room unless you want the fear of God in you.
So this is it. I was trying to think what positions might suit different characters, right? So if you're
magic.
the primary school teacher and you're looking at the team to lay out what position kind of is
Brilliant.
who, right?
Yeah,
so
I love
thinking Mary, right? Confident, popular, kind of a good leader. I was thinking like an out half as a Mary. Are they kind of?
Yeah, absolutely. The most important person on the pitch, like, gotta mind them as well. Probably the same tackling techniques as well. They all tackle like Marys, don't they?
They all tackle like Marys, exactly. Joseph, right, is confident, most popular in the class. So I was kind of wondering about this one. I was thinking like a number 8, maybe.
Yeah. Good with his hands, carpenter, stuff like that. Yeah, number 8 skills
Like
off the bat.
Doris, I could kind of see him as quite confident, quite cool, and like popular. Maybe he's lipping years gone by.
A little bit gullible as well. You know what I mean? It was the Holy Spirit. Sorry, Mom. Jeez, I'm sorry, Mom. I'm going straight to confession.
You're just right. Right. And the narrator is just someone who won't shut up, right? So who's the talker? I was thinking Tomás O'Leary, the scrum half.
The 9s are narrators, aren't they? And just
Pain
all
in
the facts.
arse.
Yeah. Look,
give me a break, will you? 9. Right, the innkeeper, we've got that. The enforcers, Paul O'Connell, probably the big yourself, maybe. You be an innkeeper?
I think I'm more of the ossel. Let's keep me with the donkeys.
Okay, I think we got the donkey, right? The wise man, right? So that was it. Who's the wise people in a team?
They're the battery, aren't they? Bar you. They're
I was thinking a hooker, maybe.
No way, they're nutters, man.
Yeah.
Hookers don't fit into the nativity, but they'd be your man Zacchaeus, the fellow up the tree, hiding with all the money. That's hookers. You're there. Why the fuck is he in this nativity? Why is Zacchaeus in there? Oh, we just have to get a hooker in some way. I think wise men are fullbacks. I always noticed a good fullback for the front 5 will save you. They'll save you a kilometre of running with just smart chat. So I'm going
wise men and fullbacks,
and make Rob Kearney the most handsome one of them. You know what I mean?
I know. Hugo Keenan, wise man.
Yeah. Why wouldn't
Angel.
you give it to Cairns, man?
Angel, don't care what others say. Listen, angels have to be the wingers, don't they? Like
Yeah, they
the
do.
fairies
Yeah,
on the
yeah,
wing.
yeah. Perfect. Always spotless.
Donkeys. There's very important the donkey riding
Don-
Mary to Bethlehem. But even just class clown, make others laugh. I
Yeah,
think
well done.
there's always one of those, the self and yourself and that. The shepherd, right? Quietly confident, secure in their own ego. I don't know what that is. I was kind of
Ooh,
thinking,
do you know
like,
what? I have it. They're your tight heads. They're your
oh,
tight head props. If you look at the John Hayeses, the Mike Rosses, the Tyke
quietly
Furlongs,
confident. Yeah,
yeah, and
yeah,
they're all
yeah.
kind of farmy like as well. You know what I mean? If there was something going on, they would be able to handle it.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
Okay, finally, the sheep. Second rows.
No, back row. It's all back
Second
row.
rows. You just follow the rucks.
No,
Where am I
yeah,
going?
but
Oh, follow. The scrum half tells me to go around the corner.
yeah, okay, fair enough. But yeah, at least honestly, second rows are important in ways. Like I think second rows are more donkeys. I see back rows as sheep because there's loads of them. No one's too bothered if you lose one. You know what I mean? There's a crow pecking its eyes out near there. Next, because there's always another back row.
Well, exactly. If the coach is to make one substitution of someone on the pitch, it'll probably take someone off the back row. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. Get rid of back rows.
Sheep, the back rows. There you have it.
I
Right.
love it.
Enough rugby shite. Well, actual shite. Let's talk to a man who knows this game inside out, has been a journalist with the Sunday Indo for over 30 years, has written a couple of wonderful books, and his new book is out at the moment. Let's talk to a blue media, but one that you seem to have a soft spot for, Donncha. Let's
Yeah,
talk
absolutely. I love it.
to Brendan Fanning. Right, here we have it. Now, Donncha gives the blue media a hard time a lot on this show, but listen, we've got one of the best out there in Irish rugby circles joining us today with a brand new book. Of course, it is Touching Distance Irish Rugby. Their battle with great expectations. I'm a massive fan of this person's book from before his autobiography by Willie Anderson, which was an absolutely fascinating read for anybody who wants to look back on it. Of course, this book follows on from his last review of Irish rugby. From there to here, Brendan Fanning, good to have you with us.
Tommy.
Go on, Brendan.
Hello, Donncha. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'm checking the index of the book as we speak, looking under O'Callaghan, Donncha, pages 76 and 83. I am afraid to look on pages 76 and 83 for fear of what I will find. And Tommy, I think you may be okay, Tommy. I'm fairly sure you're safe.
No fear of that, Brendan. It's great to see you. Congratulations on the book, because as Tommy was saying there, it's been a body of work, isn't it? I think we're used to hearing people's different stories, but this is the narrative really of where we've come from in that short distance, and how we've even noticed in the game changing so much. You've put it into context and got it down for everyone to keep track of.
It's something I wanted to do, Donncha, and I wouldn't say everybody who writes a book actually wants to do it. They may feel obliged to do it, or for whatever reason. But it was something that I needed to follow up on. I really enjoyed doing the first one way back in 2007 because of the lunacy that was, the mad stuff that was going on in our transition from amateur to pro. And it kind of made sense to follow it up. It was just a question of when I would do it and how I would kind of structure it and put shape on it and get a publishing contract that worked. So all of that eventually came together. And I have to say, I was blessed that I spoke to over 100 people in putting the book together, and all bar one or two were in a position to help, which was fantastic. I would have been stumped, if like, hey guys, and they were ghosting you, or they were saying, "No, I'm not touching that." But luckily, they all.
Well, we'll go through, because some of the people you got, like some of the most influential names and people who've been involved in Irish rugby over the last number of years. You're talking David Nusafora, you're talking David Humphreys, who's now come in as the head of performance. Ronan O'Gara spoke to you, Stuart Lancaster spoke to you, spoke to Razzie Erasmus around the whole time. Was he staying? Was he going from Munster? You spoke to players, even Eddie O'Sullivan. I mean, it takes it from the end of the Eddie O'Sullivan era to where we are today. But what was the thinking? Obviously, you wanted to chart that story with the thought in that period it'll be a real positive book. But I think the title touching, well, dealing with great expectations and maybe our struggle with it says it all. Like, what did you want to get out of this book when you started it?
I wanted to put some perspective on the journey and uh, to explain how it happened, and most importantly, I'm not sure if this word exists in the English language, yarnage. If it doesn't, if a story, if a book doesn't have yarnage, there's no point. And I knew
Hmm.
that there were loads of stories. My battle, Tommy, was, and I'm happy to admit this, I'm not brilliant on structure, and I battle with trying to present stuff in a readable way. Um, so once I got the structure reasonably okay, then I was mad keen to get on with it because I knew all of these people had something to say, and moreover, I learned a bit more about what happened in the course of ringing all these people and discovering stuff I didn't know. One of which was like Warren Gatland, for example. Uh, Warren has kind of I wouldn't say made a career out of giving out about Ireland, but he's never quite moved on from his departure, and he bears it, and that's fine. I get that, but I didn't realize that Keith Wood had a hand in his demise. I didn't realize that Keith Wood went to London, had lunch with Sid Miller, who was a very big hitter at the time, and Sid said to him, "We're not asking you to make the decision, but we are interested in your opinion. You're the captain and you're a very important person. What is your opinion?" And uh, Wood said, "Yeah, my opinion is I think you should go." I didn't know that. And when I caught up at Wood to interview him about this, he actually said to me, "If you remember," he said, "when we spoke for your first book," he didn't quote Richard Milhouse Nixon and say that he was economical with the truth, but he said, "I couldn't tell you the full story then because there were still sensitivities at that time." He says, "I can tell you now." And I'm talking to him going, Jesus, this is exactly what I want.
This is what and
Yeah,
what you did want back in the day,
yeah.
yeah.
So there were lots of little nuggets like that. I didn't realize that Ronan O'Gara considered Leinster fans to be knob jockeys in their Brown Thomas gear, which was another your heart starts beating faster moment when you're interviewing somebody and they say stuff that Jesus, this is really, really usable. And you just hope that they don't withdraw it then. But of course, O'Gara being O'Gara, perfectly happy to let all of that.
Yeah. No, but just on that, Brendan, and when Tommy went through the names there, like it is the cream of the crop there, and it's not surprising that they'd make time for you because you've earned that right through your writing through the years. I'm not saying you were always in our corner, but you always called it. To be fair, your opinions and stuff like that were true to yourself, and you always stayed the course with that, and you earn, like on the pitch, you earn respect. That's the reason those lads were so comfortable to chat openly and honest to you.
I don't know. I wish that was true, Donncha. Everybody has an agenda, including me. And the only thing I'd say this, I never, somebody gave me a bit of advice at the start, way back, which was, don't try and be mates with these fellas. They're not your friends. I hope you have your own circle of friends and you're happy with that. Don't try and include these people as your friends, because the moment you do that, you stop writing about them. So I followed that fairly diligently. But everybody who cooperated, I would say cooperated because it suited them.
Go on. So let's get into it, right? So what are the findings? So say, for instance, the big part of the book, what I've taken from it is that we have gone through a golden generation over the last probably 20 years with Irish rugby. But and I know you talk about this at speaking to a lot of foreign journalists, they kind of compliment Ireland and how amazing they are, but they're always very quick to tell you that you haven't made it past a quarter final. Where do you see Irish rugby at the moment? where David Nucifora has left it and David Humphrey has taken it on board, where Andy Farrell is going through, we're halfway through a World Cup cycle off the back of a Lions tour that really didn't capture the imagination, I think, particularly in Ireland. Where do you see Irish rugby placed at the minute?
I tend to filter everything through the lens of where we were at the start of when I started out in this business. And I never thought I would be able to get a full-time career out of writing about rugby. And I am forever grateful that I managed to do that, because the game went pro. And not only did it go pro, but suddenly we started taking it seriously. And we had loads of people talk about having a high ceiling and having growth potential. We always had great growth potential because we were half-assed at what we were doing. But if we took it seriously, we could be very good. So I look back on the way we were and how poor we were in the 80s and 90s and how far we've come. And I think it is fantastic. And the achievements have been immense relative to our human and financial resources. But that comes, that drives expectations, and our expectations are pretty high, which is great. I wouldn't be overflowing with optimism given the current age profile of the squad and the limited window that Andy Farrell has to make changes. I mean, there are only 17 tests, I think, between now and the World Cup, which is nothing. So, yeah, I would be a bit concerned. I'd be a bit concerned that the way the game is now, big is beautiful. And we don't, as a race, genetically, we are not gifted. So we're not producing like the Saffers produce. The Saffers have it.
Monsters.
They genetically produce white people who are very, very big, and they have an enormous potential window into coloured players because they make up, I don't know what percentage of the country. So, like, I can't see South Africa being overtaken because they got rid of apartheid and they took it seriously. And once they did that, they're way ahead of the rest of us. So we will always struggle. And that's why I think number one on David Humphrey's agenda, and I think he gets this, Tommy, is to get the most out of the other three provinces, as in Munster, Connacht and Ulster, on the development front, and also to address X Factor.
Do you think whenever you mention that, the other provinces that we need, and because you talk about Leinster a little bit and you say that they got complacent, they got arrogant, and they focused on the school system very much. I think for the other provinces, if they're going to compete, do they need to look outside the box of what traditional rugby players coming through? If you're talking about Gaelic football, soccer, players who are of colour who've come into the country who have a different genetic makeup.
100%.
And Irish rugby probably has stayed in its lane a little bit, but to progress, they really need to open up the net a little bit.
Why do you think we've stayed in our lane?
Don't know.
Because we've been successful. Because we've gone from being crap to being very, very good. We tend to look in the mirror and say, Jesus, how good are we? Look at Scotland, look at Wales, who were, in the same category as us. They're dust. We've left them for dead. And that has induced a degree of comfort. So we're not going mad, turning over every stone, trying to find players with X factor. I'll give an example. I'm still coaching. I'm coaching in youth rugby. I'm doing skills coaching in Coolmine, a junior club in West Dublin, across 13s, 14s.
Good on you, Brendan. Good on you.
Some of the players I'm coming across, not run-of-the-mill rugby players, not heading to private school, are unbelievable. And I would be, you wouldn't want to be making a major life decision about a kid who's 13 or 14 or 15. But there are some fellas out there who I've come across who are just really athletically gifted. And I don't know where they're going or what their plan is, but I know that if I was David Humphreys, I would be tapping into every club in the country and saying, the moment you see somebody who might fit our prototype, let us know.
Well, yeah, just on that though, like if you like, that's the story about the Edwin Adogbu. He was on his way down to play a tennis match down in Cove and past Cove Pirates, and they were like, "Where the fuck are you off to?"
Yes.
And he was around going playing tennis.
Yeah.
They were like, "Come in here, let's have a chat." But you're right, probably widening that a little bit more. Brendan, do you think we've been slow to adapt? Because it's going on, if you think about it. Look at the amount of young Irish talent that now looks to the NFL, or no, sorry, NFL in ways. We've goal kickers kicking for the Saints. We've also guys playing Australian rules, not only at kind of professional level, but decent levels. Do we not, are we happy to sit as 4th choice? Should we be tapping into the GAA system more?
Absolutely. We should have raiding parties going into the GAA and spiriting those kids away. I remember years ago asking an IRFU guy, this is pre-professionalism, why it was that rugby didn't try and filch a couple of players out of GAA. And he said, oh, GAA have their system and we have ours and we're perfectly happy where we are. And I'm thinking, Christ, if we're going to be perfectly happy just being in our lane, as you put it, we're never going to overtake anybody. And we need to be way more aggressive. And it's difficult. I remember, I'll give you an example. When I was in coaching in Tarf, coached my son's team, and they were pretty handy. And there was one lad in particular was an absolute star, played for Nafiana in Glasnevin. And I remember coaxing him along and trying to get his folks on side and saying, look, this guy could absolutely play for Ireland youth. When we had a youth team before, I think David Ducey Forum may have taken us apart. And I said, he'll never get a green jersey playing GAA. I respect everything they do, but he isn't going to represent his country. And I got, yeah, but he'll play for the Dubs. And he did play with the Dubs. He played minor football. And he won an All-Ireland medal with Nafiana, a club medal there not too long ago. What the GA have done is incredible. Like, they're in every parish in the country and they have a vice-like grip. But the moment you accept that grip is unbreakable, you're doomed. And we as a sport, we have to get after them and get more of them over. Definitely.
I've spoken to a number of the Gaelic footballers, and they never given the opportunity. They've always said, listen, Gaelic football was always number one for them. But they've always said, like, I would have loved to have given it a go. I'd love to have tried my hand at rugby, but it just wasn't really available. They weren't in the school system, and it was just felt like it was not within touch and distance from them. You spoke... Go on, sorry.
I just have a real life example of it. When we were with Munster, we were lucky to get a fitness advisor over called Damien Mendes. He'd worked with cricket, and a big area of expertise that he was coming was that. Do you remember SAQ, speed, agility, quickness?
Yes.
And so he started putting us through all these different type of ladders, drills, small hurdles. It was our first time. We were pathetic at it. He was absolutely horrified. And Tomás O'Leary came out. He was only out into the academy, only around a few weeks. And he skipped through it. And Mendes was like, who the fuck is that? Where'd you get him? And we were like, that's Shawnee's young fella.
Yeah.
And he was like, get me more of him. And you know what I mean? It's just embedded into them that they can move better. Like, when you do think of it, we are probably pulling from the 4th choice athlete, aren't we?
We are, but we're still poor at that, at the SAQ. And I'm talking about, even if you're not born with fast twitch, Tommy, you probably have. You're blessed, I guess, with fast twitch.
Yeah, he is.
You're not to stick.
Yeah, he can shift.
Is pretty impressive. But the footwork of kids that I see is awful, Donncha. Like, they can't put one foot. Once you bring out the ladders or you ask them to perform the stuff like that, they really struggle. And
well, Brendan, just on that point itself, that's where I think our demise has happened in attack at the moment. I'm just using one example of it. Doris's ability before contact to move somebody, to stand them up with brilliant. We used to highlight it all the time. You see it with so many of them, and we're just not seeing it at the moment. I know they might be a bit rusty after lines torn and stuff like that, but I do think evasion before contact is poor at the moment.
There's no space anymore. There's no space.
But that's,
bigger is better.
That's another Humphreys. That's another thing that should be on his to-do list. if you try and bring some structure and goals into mini rugby so that it becomes less about teaching them how to tackle and, giving them moves. Christ, sometimes kids say to me, will you give us some moves? And I said, well, if you want moves, go to a nightclub. Like, learn how to, as you say, Tommy, to be evasive. Footwork, that has to be practiced. If you don't have it naturally, it has to be practiced. And there's one thing that I don't have an answer to, and maybe you guys do, or maybe some of your listeners do. The gap in one of the gaps in our system is that our clubs. So I'm talking about youth rugby, so non-private schools, or the lads who are playing youth rugby and who are not in private schools. So between 12 and 18, they don't fit into the system in a meaningful way, because what the clubs are trying to do is to copy the private school system, and they can't because they don't have the time, and they don't have the clubs operate 2 nights a week. They don't operate in daylight hours 5 or 6 days a week, and we haven't come up with a really clever way for the clubs to generate maybe some of this X factor, or to plug into the grid in a more meaningful way than they are currently.
Listen, and I know we don't want to be complacent with where we are, but I think for where Irish rugby has been over the last while, we are, and you said, like, we used to be behind Scotland and Wales. Now we've leapfrogged them massively, and we're taking on the South Africas, the Frances, the New Zealands, which is amazing for such a small country. Where do you think, like, so of all the people you spoke to, the one person you wanted to talk to that obviously happened to be bringing out a book at the same time, so it didn't quite work out, was Andy Farrell.
Oh, I thought it was me with Disaster Dad. I was there, Brendan. I'd chat to you any day of the week, fella. Andy Farrell.
Yeah, like for our Faz, right? Where is this Irish team at the minute then? Where, like, say Ireland were to be dropped into a World Cup quarterfinal now, how do you think we would fare? Like, what do you think Andy Farrell has on his plate over the next couple of months? As you said, I think 17 games before this World Cup kicks off. Because for me, you mentioned it also, the squad age has to be a worry for him.
Yeah, it is a worry for him, and I think we would do better if the quarterfinal was this week than if the quarterfinal was in 2 years' time. And the major dilemma for him, Tommy, is, and I don't know what you guys think, but I think Test rugby is called Test rugby for a reason, and it is a test of lots of different things. And you can't pitch a guy in the hope that it might take 5 or 6, 7 games. You pitch him in because his form is irresistible, and you have to give him a game. Yeah. And if you start picking the team now with a view to World Cup in Australia in 2 years' time, you're doomed. Yeah. So he has to keep picking within reason. He has to keep picking appropriately strong teams, which may, for example, involve picking Bundy Aki up until 18 months' time, and then ditch him because he's gone over the top.
That's because there are no real players, if you think about it, through the provinces that are shooting the lights out. There's nobody. I mean, Tom Farrell was probably one of the players of the season last year, played exceptionally well, got a chance, but he's in his 30s. What other players in the other provinces at the minute are really pushing hard to get themselves back into the Irish team? And I think that's the problem that Andy Farrell has, because I think he would like to make changes, but not too sure whether the ability or the quality's out there.
Yeah, you're dead right. He should be on the phone to the 4 provincial directors saying, lads, I can't do my job without your help. You need to be given more game time to X, Y, or Z. Jude Postlethwaite, I'd say, is a guy is a good example. Guy who's going to appear in the Six Nations squad. I don't know if he's going to be in there as a learner or if he's going to be in there as a contender. But there aren't a whole pile of fellas out there kicking the door in saying, you need to pick me. And that is Farrell's dilemma. And those 17 tests are going to be gone in jig time. And before you know it, we're on the plane down to Australia.
But Brendan, he's very much his own man as well. We've seen him pick players that weren't getting picked. Like if you look at Gibson Park, if even you look at Prendergast, he'll go into the depth of a province if he likes. Even Paddy McCarthy, you've seen him from 20s. You think he has an eye as well for what he wants, and you know what I mean? He's not going to wait for the provinces to put it in his lap. He'll pick under if they're not performing.
I admire that about him in that he's prepared to do exactly as you say. But the problem is, that's a risk. Every time you're going to pick a bloke who's not getting the game time that you want him to get, that is undermining his potential, or yeah, it is undermining his potential to do a job at test level. And I don't know how much communication there is between Farrell and the four coaches, and how much he's nudging them. I know if I was in his position, I'd be on the phone to these guys constantly, saying, "Give us a dig out here. You need to pick Tommy Bowe now. Give him a run, and you'll get Leo, or you'll get Clayton McMillan, or you get." I said, "No, bugger off, and I need to. We're in Europe this weekend. I need to pick who I need to pick." But that conversation, I think, needs to be ongoing, because our system is so small. We only have 4 pro teams outside of the national side.
Well, and listen, we're such a envious position where the RFU has ultimate control over the provinces as well. You'd like to think David Humphreys can pull those calls. Listen, I want to get your opinion on rugby in general at the minute. James Lowe has done an interview this week. He's talked about how rugby is in a weird, confusing phase. I was reading an interview with Nigel Owens at the weekend saying he's wondering, has rugby lost its way? As somebody who's been a journalist for over 30 years with Sunday Indo, watch the game through the good days and the bad days. Where do you see the game of rugby at the minute? And do you still enjoy watching it?
I do. There's a but coming. The contestables, I struggle with the amount of ball that is kicked, and the law change that has taken escorts out of the equation has only fed into it. So everybody is kicking contestables. That's one that I find difficulty with. The other thing that I lose the will to live over is the scrum, and I absolutely respect and I love seeing top quality scrummaging. But a couple of things drive me insane. One is referees penalising teams for going backwards at the scrum, not for any particular reason, but a light goes off and they say, "Oh Christ, they're going backwards. They must be doing something wrong. I better penalise them for something." And I would say, let teams, if you're going to get driven back at the scrum, don't automatically give a penalty. Let a team go backwards.
And that's the advantage.
Yeah, exactly. That is the advantage. And don't interrupt until such time as there is a blatant offence that needs to be blown up.
Yeah, some tight head coming up to you going, "Can I be seen then, please?"
The other thing is the ritual of kicking to touch. You win a scrum penalty, you go to touch your maul. You get another penalty, over and over and over. It's a cycle that's almost unbreakable. And I wonder, at some point, will World Rugby look at breaking that cycle? For example, you win a scrum penalty, okay, you can kick it to touch, but you're not going to get the line out. Maybe there's something a little bit left field to try and break that ritual, that, monotonous big man beats the living Jesus out of small man over and over and over again.
Do you think it's at the extent where rugby needs to look at it like the GAA did with Jim Gavin taking over Gaelic football and making fundamental changes that's turned the Gaelic football game around as a spectacle massively?
I would say rugby is the most scrutinized, self-scrutinized sport on the planet. We are always, there's always a law change or an experiment coming. The latest one is the tackle height. And I see that at kids level, and it's not reffed. The first 2 weeks of the season, it's reffed. It just kind of slides. It slides off the agenda. So I would applaud World Rugby on their efforts to make the game safer, and they have made progress. But the elephant in the room is, if you want to make rugby safer, you're going to have to stop calling it rugby, and it's going to have to become something else. And you're going to have to take the tackle out of it, and that ain't going to happen. I think there will be tweaks. There are tweaks that can be made that will make it more attractive for teams to keep the ball in their hand rather than to kick it away. And if those tweaks were made, like perhaps bring the escorts back into it, and make the kicking for contestables less attractive, I think that would certainly help. And the scrum.
Do you know what's pissed me?
No, just like
Sorry,
Donegal, you tell me. I mean, my God, you packed down
no,
a
you
million
know,
scrum.
it just on
Oh
the.
Jesus, no, we
No,
don't have time for that.
no.
Sorry.
But Brendan, one thing that's annoying me out of the coaches at the moment is this kind of, let's use the kick escort as, you know what I mean, something to hide behind. It's their job to evolve. It's it's Darwin, you know what I mean? Evolve or die. So basically, I understand, like, the kicking has come into the game. But I think that should suit us. If we're chatting about the type of athletes, like look at Shane Horgan's try in Twickenham, look at him in the air. We have athletes that can feel balls. It's something every boy and girl does from a young age, you know, with the GA background. It's a massive chance for a point of difference. I just don't think we're moving quickly enough, or like everyone gives Razzie shit, but Razzie's forward thinking. We need our coaches to be more forward thinking. Stop using excuses of, oh, they made a law change. I understand it's in jeopardy, but get fucking busy manipulating it, like.
I think coaches are pretty good at reacting to law changes and finding loopholes and workarounds in order to get what they want to get. The balance, I reckon, is to make it attractive to teams. And I love the kick passing. I think that is a super skill. Make it attractive to teams to keep the ball without turning it into you only refereeing the defense. Once you start only refereeing the defense, you've got a million phases and a try, and it's just inevitable that you're going to score the try. If you can find a balance, then happy days. But despite all of that, on the right day at the right time, sometimes rugby still gives us unbelievable value, and it explains to us, or it reaffirms our belief in what is just an extraordinary sport.
Yeah.
And I do think that the matches
That was
over
me
the
with
next couple of
Glasgow.
weeks.
That was me with Glasgow this weekend of all the crowd.
Yeah.
But I was like, thank you, Glasgow, for restoring my hope that we still have a great game.
Yeah, and we do.
And I think, listen, Test rugby does that, and that sometimes is that's what people love about it. But as you say, it's a collision sport. It's always going to be that way, and that's kind of what people love about it. Listen, Brendan, I really appreciate you coming on and talking to us. The book is called Touching Distance, Irish Rugby's Battle with Great Expectations. We didn't get to the bit, my favourite line from the whole book, a quote by David Nucifora, talking about Munster. This was going to get him round up. The battle down there is to keep the people whose emotions are always running high, to keep their noses out of stuff they have no business in. I love that. Until they do away with the parochial attitude and living in the past, they're just not going to move forward. At some point, they're going to have to bust open the cable if they want to move consistently forward. Oh, I love it.
Can I give you some context on that?
Yes, please.
No, we don't want context.
Fuck off, Tommy. Jog on you. Leave me and Brendan at this.
As he said more at time. And it is a perk of the job. When you're interviewing somebody who's giving you really, really good stuff, honestly, your heart starts beating faster and you're thinking, this is really good. Christ, I'm going to use this. And then you're thinking, fucking hell, don't take it away, please. But it was so good, I said, I'm going to have to run this back across him, because it'll be a bomb will go off if I use this without his say so.
Jeez, good
so
on
I
you.
said back to him with a note saying, please don't feel the need to make any changes to this, but it's probably better that you revise it. And he took some stuff out, but he left that in. So you can imagine if he took stuff out, you can imagine what he said the first time, which was, it would have been brilliant, you know, for sales, it would have been fantastic.
For the next book. He's done a Woody on it.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah,
correct. That's exactly what he's done.
Brendan, just a quick one for me, if you don't mind. Where's the relationship with the media? You've worked in it, Tommy saying, you know, your whole career. How do you see that playing out now? That kind of, like, if I go back to it at the start, Michael Corcoran, Barry Collin, they used to be on our bus back to the airport. You know what I mean? That's how they got back there, you know? It's changed an awful lot since then, isn't it?
When I started out, if I wanted to interview you, I rang you up in your job. And you probably worked in insurance, or you worked in car sales, or whatever you were doing, and you took the call, and you were mildly flattered at the prospect of getting your name in the paper. That ain't the case anymore. I now have to go through a media prevention officer, and by the time I get to you, all the goodness has been taken out of you, and you're in bland land. So look, it's the best job in the world, sports writing, but it is a bit of a chore trying to get interesting stuff. That's for sure.
Just on that though, do you think the journalists, the media themselves, like the way we're conducting ourselves, you know, you look at some of the stuff that went on over the Six Nations, different things like that. We don't, like, we tried to get to chat to some of the South Africa lads and they won't go near us because the Irish media has a name for exactly what's happened, you know, in the Leinster camp, for kind of nearly skewing the words to sound a little bit different.
It's a very difficult relationship to manage. I find the Aussies, in my experience over the years,
Yeah.
I always found the Aussies pretty open and happy to talk. I'll never forget, in 1994, I covered Ireland's tour of Australia, which was the best crack I ever had in my life. It was unbelievable. It was before Australia became incredibly expensive. So Ireland had played New South Wales and got milled, absolutely beaten off the park. And the test series was coming up. And God be good to a guy, Greg Growden. He was the Sydney Morning Herald correspondent. He's dead now. And I was tagging along with him. And I said, where do we go for the post-match, the nannies, the quotes? And he says, oh, mate, down to the changing room. And I said, Jesus, we don't do that. So I followed along, and he walks into the changing room, and he sits down. And I kind of sat down beside him, and he turned around to Phil Kearns. And he said, you know, what you make of the Irish, blah, blah. And he says, oh, I wouldn't be surprised if they put a bit of stoush on in the tests. I said, fucking hell, what's this about? So when I came out afterwards, I said, what's a stoush? And he said, a fight, a row. He said, so Kearns was saying, I wouldn't be surprised if they start throwing digs and Silver Kings coming out of the test. I can't believe this. This is fantastic. Didn't catch on in Ireland. If you went into a changing room here, oh Jesus, and understandably, we've no business being in changing rooms. But I found that very interesting.
No, but I do think that the relationship with the media is something that we should be encouraging, but it comes both sides. That if a player is open, that, you know, maybe a big meal out of a headline shouldn't really happen, so you can build that trust. It's probably something that can work both ways, but I definitely think the way the game has gone nowadays, I know even now that I'm on the other side of it, the blandness of some of the interviews is really, really difficult. So I think for the game to grow, you look at the Netflix documentary, you look at the behind the scenes of the Lions documentary, it's just desperate. I think for a game that really needs to give a real eye opener to people what actually goes on behind the scenes. I think it's a two-edged sword. It has to happen both ways. But listen, I think this is a wonderful book, a wonderful insight. I think for rugby people and non-rugby people alike, people who have an interest just in provincial rugby, international rugby, I think they'll really enjoy it. And to be fair, there's enough feckin' autobiographies out there as well, so why not go down and get Brendan's?
Absolutely. If you love our game, go out and pick it up. Touching Distance by Brendan Fanning. Brendan, you beauty. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks a lot, lads. I really enjoyed that. Thanks for the opportunity.